It's truly been a pleasure listening to you, Shruti. Thank you very much. Now, to amp up the energy levels, let's witness a fireside chat between the dynamic duo. Abhishek Shah, the founding team of D2C Insider, and the managing editor of CNBC TV 18, Shreen Bhan. Beyond her numerous accolades and prestigious awards, Shreen's impact reverberates far beyond the anchor desk. She has blazed a trail for aspiring women in business journalism, inspiring them to challenge conventions and strive for greatness in a male dominated industry. Looking forward to this exhilarating conversation. Over to you, Abhishek.
Thank you. Hi everyone, good evening, and thanks a lot to all of you here. It's my absolute pleasure and privilege to introduce a woman who has been a symbol of resilience, intelligence, and unyielding determination. I think we all know Shreen Bhan, and I think we should all welcome her for making it here on a short notice. Thanks a lot, Shreen. I think her introduction is not really required, but just for some context, Young Turk has just completed 22 years and she has been hosting the show. She is the managing director of CNBC TV 18, and I think this is one show which has, I remember my startup journey started in 2006, and I think she started this in 2002, 2001, and I think the Indian startup ecosystem has just come of age in the last 20 years. A lot of you are maybe new entrepreneurs, you have not seen where we were. And at that time there was nothing, right? And anyone who was doing a startup show back then, I think it was very, very ahead of its time. So I think she's truly a pioneer in that way. And I think like all of us creators here, she has created this show. And I think the impact of this show has been amazing. All entrepreneurs have been aspiring to be on this show. And I think she has seen it all. She has been, the show has been a launch pad for all these entrepreneurs. So I think this would be a very interesting conversation given the context of Women's Summit here as well, to really learn from her on her experience. And obviously she has interviewed the who's who globally, so I'm pretty nervous obviously to host her. But I hope that this can be a productive session for all of us, and thanks a lot, Shreen, again.
Thank you so much, Abhishek. It's great to be here. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad that we have some men in the room as well. But it's fabulous to be here. When Abhishek called and said that, asked me if I could be here. There's a lot going on right now because of the G20 and the B20 meetings, but I decided that I would do this because in many ways, one of my regrets over the last 20 plus years of doing Young Turks is that we haven't had enough women founders on the program. So my hope is and my belief is that we're going to see that change, and that is why I said that I have to be here because I truly believe that if we give women opportunity, if we give women access to capital, if we give women founders the enabling environments that the men have access to, there is nothing that can stop them. And I truly believe that is the case. And I think we're starting to see changes, but the data tells us that we've got a long journey to go and a long distance to cover. So everything that we can do in our individual capacity to be able to further that cause is important. And I also now run something called Future Female Forward. It is a campaign that we launched in November of last year with the idea being to really create a diverse pool of role models, of female role models. They could be CEOs, they could be in the armed forces, they could be in science and technology. And again, I think representation of women across different sectors is important, and I think as far as media is concerned, to be able to give women a voice and give women a platform and showcase the diversity of representation, I think that's very important as well. So which is why the minute you said that you're doing a women's summit, I said, okay, sign me up, I'll be there.
Yeah. I was actually amazed that we reached out last minute and you said yes. And absolutely, I think this is even amazing to know that our purpose aligns. And just for some context, we started the women chapter. The broader community we started 4 years back. The women chapter we started in January, and a lot of pushback on why do we need a women chapter. But we felt that hey, this is a segment which is underrepresented, and like you said, it needs more attention. And we felt that hey, as a community, can we enable them separately? Additionally, I would say not separately. And I think very proud that we are now 1,000 plus women founders. It has become one of our most active chapters. And this event actually happened as a joke. We were 600 founders. I said, if we touch 1,000 plus, we'll organize a meet. And within 3 days, we hit 1,000. all the women founders started inviting everyone.
Well, congratulations on achieving that
Yeah.
milestone. I hope that you achieve many, many more.
Yeah, but
in the years
I think
to
that's
come.
just the start. Like you said, I think we need to do a lot of work on that. And I think someone like you can really make an impact there. Obviously, we as a community will do whatever we can, but I think it needs more voice, it needs more attention, and I think you are a change maker in that way. And I think it would be great for you to join the cause. On that note, I would want to ask you, the first question which I would want to ask you, which is the most maybe tricky one. Having been professional throughout and gone through that journey yourself, and we have a lot of young founders here, and obviously we all know that women need to, they have double more challenges, right? And when you were interviewing Indra today, I just saw an interview and she was discussing about how we can't have it all. What's your view on that? What's been your experience on that? Can you have it all?
I don't think that you can have it all the time or at one point in time. I think we have to be very, very clear about the fact that life is about prioritization. And whether it's men or women, but particularly so for women, because the disproportionate burden of child care, of home care, of geriatric care does fall on women, and that is the reality that we must acknowledge. So I think to sort of create this sense of being able to juggle all the balls all the time, I don't think that kind of pressure is necessary. I don't think that's healthy, and I truly believe that we need to get out of this mindset of forcing women to be able to sort of, A, strive for perfection all the time, and B, try and fit into every kind of role all the time. So, as I pointed out, it comes down to priorities. And the one learning that I will share with you over the past 20 years of doing this is that women tend to put themselves last. As women, we will always say, somebody else's priorities are more important. My parents' priorities are more important, or my partner's priorities are more important, my children's priorities are more important. And you then keep putting yourself lower and lower on the list of priorities. And I truly believe that is a disservice that we do to ourselves, because I believe that if we feel whole and we have a wholesome approach to life, I think we can do much more, we can give back much more, and we can do it feeling better about ourselves. So I think prioritization is key, and don't sell yourself short. The other thing that has been an important lesson and an important learning is that, as women, again, we're constantly disparaging to ourselves. We always underestimate our own abilities. We always undersell our own selves. Somebody will give us a compliment, and we'll be the last one to sort of accept it graciously. We'll always sort of come back and say, no, that's not really true, or make a joke about it. And I think we need to stop doing that as well, because you, again, create an environment where you start to believe that to be true. So have the ability to believe in your skills, in your capabilities. I think each one of us needs to invest much more in just feeling confident about who we are, and not taking any bullshit from anybody. I mean, to put it plainly. And I think that there will be times when you will need to call it out. And I don't think that happens automatically. It's not a switch that you can turn on and off. But I think with experience, with time, you will have the ability to call out bad behavior, to call out toxic behavior. And I think it's important for each one of us in this room, because please remember that we're sitting here, we enjoy a certain amount of privilege, which is not something that many women in this country enjoy. So I think we need to use our voice and our privilege to ensure that we call out bad behavior, we call out toxic behavior as well. And I think if you start to do that, and you sort of, you create a much more enabling environment for other women, and I think it just makes an organization much more balanced in its approach to things. So those are some of the lessons that I've learned over the past 20 odd years of sort of running an organization, creating a team, creating Young Turks, which is one of the world's longest running show on startups and entrepreneurship. And I truly believe in the power of community. When we started Young Turks 21 years ago, I thought that this would run for like maybe 13 weeks, and that would be the end of that. It took on a life of its own, because there were first generation entrepreneurs who felt like for the very first time, there was someone interested in their story. There was a platform that allowed them access to similar kinds of stories. So it really built out over the last 20 years the largest community of young entrepreneurs, first generation entrepreneurs, more men than women, but nevertheless. That has been a passion, and I'm glad that we've seen the evolution of the Indian startup ecosystem, and so much has changed for the better. But I think there's, again, a lot more work that needs to be done on that front as well. But community and the power of community, I'm a big believer in that.
Right. So Shreen, you just mentioned that you've seen the evolution. Would be very interesting, both from a overall startup ecosystem point of view as well as from a women founder point of view. I think what overall startup founders went through 20 years back, I think those challenges would still be there for women founders. So how have you seen that evolution, that maturity, that growth of that ecosystem, and in the context of women founders today? Obviously, they are much more privileged than they were 20 years back, but as you said, the challenges still remain. So where do you see the women founders today? A lot of them are just early members, just starting out. And in context of overall ecosystem growth, where do you see young women founders today starting out?
I won't focus specifically on women alone, but I think what has changed over the last 20 years of chronicling the changes in the Indian startup ecosystem. One, I think we've now got depth and breadth. When we started Young Turks, there was not so much depth, there was breadth, but now what we start to see is that there is depth and breadth of the kinds of businesses. You're also now seeing less cookie-cutter businesses. You're also seeing businesses that are more relevant for India, for the Indian consumer, for Indian problems, for Indian challenges. You're also seeing an aspiration of scale. That has changed significantly. Now you're talking about being able to do things at population scale. So people have the aspiration of doing that. People have the aspiration of creating in India and creating for the world. So I think many of those aspects have changed. The kind of capital that's coming in and has started to come in over the last 10 odd years has been significant. I think the power of networks, specifically for women, I think just access to a community like this or community of investors, etc., that has certainly made the journey easier. And of course, the internet and social media, I think that's just brought down the barriers of entry significantly for anybody who wants to start a business today. And of course, the digital public infrastructure. So whether it's Aadhaar or it's all of that, you can actually build on top of that. So I think in many ways there have been structural shifts that have enabled the ecosystem to do more. On the downside, I think this is something that the community is grappling with today, is that we've had an era of easy money. We've had virtually free money for the last 15 odd years with VCs throwing money at any and every startup. And I think one of the challenges of the easy money has been not really valuing that appropriately and not focusing on actually building a business. And I think sustainability has to be something that everyone in this room focuses on, because at the end of the day, you're hopefully building something not just to scale, but something to last as well. So I think that needs to be the focus, and I think the easy money perhaps inculcated certain bad habits within the ecosystem. And you go through these boom and bust cycles, and we've gone through plenty of them here as well over the last 2 decades. So I think we are starting to see a reset and a correction on that front, and in many ways it's healthier for the ecosystem as well. So I think those are again some of the changes that I've noticed specifically, in the past 10 odd years of tracking the startup ecosystem.
No, absolutely. I think you're completely right. I think it's a great correction, and I think we have seen multiple cycles. And in that context, talking about D2C specifically, I think the last 3-4 years we've seen that post-pandemic, and I think we are seeing that correction in D2C also right now. It's a broad ecosystem. So where do you see the D2C ecosystem as an observer, having seen multiple cycles across multiple industries? Obviously, this whole new age consumer economy. Where do you see this going?
Well, today is a good day to be having that conversation. We've seen the largest exit in the D2C space, Carrot Lane being acquired by Titan.
Yes.
The family has, Mithun Sanjeti sold 27.18% stake for a little over 4,600 crores. So,
wow.
So that's a great deal to talk about, and that really tells you about the maturity, in a sense, of the ecosystem. So, this is one of the largest deals in the ecosystem, but we've seen many. I mean, we've got many FMCG companies from ITC to HUL to Marico looking at being able to explore inorganic opportunities within the D2C space, because I think it's been many, and here's again one of the lessons that I've learned over the years of tracking business and speaking with entrepreneurs. I think it's very important for each one of you to understand that profit is in the niches. So when you build out a business, you build out a niche that is differentiated, a niche that is specialized, a niche that stands for something on its own. I think if you try and be something for everybody, you're going to find it hard to be able to sort of move up the value chain, move up the ladder. I think what we very often end up seeing is a fair degree of commoditization, and I don't believe commoditization can give you value or valuation. I mean, it might give you valuation at this point in time, and as I pointed out, the money was easy. But I think the differentiation, specialization, and niches, creating niches are important. If you see all of the acquisitions that have happened in the D2C space, as I mentioned, are all businesses that have been able to create something that consumers want. One of the other things that I've learned, and this is something that an entrepreneur told me, which I think is important in the current environment as well, is that you cannot save yourself out of trouble. You have to sell yourself out of trouble, which also means that while you can focus on cutting costs and so on and so forth, you also have to ensure that people want what you're selling, that you actually offer something there that there is a need for in the market. So I think you need to find that appropriate balance between both, and that really again is the key to being able to build a business that hopefully you can continue to grow and scale an IPO, or if you choose, like Mithun has done, to sell out. And I think many of our young girls that I've spoken to have also shared this with me. Starting up is an emotional journey, right? I mean, for each one of you, it's your baby, it's your passion, it's your love affair, it's everything that you hoped for, and that manifests itself in something real. But at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with creating something and then looking at it from a point of view that where do you believe it can reside, or what would lead it to a better place, so to speak. And if that means selling it out to somebody who can do better with it, and then using that capital for whatever else you choose to do, I think again these are decisions that each individual needs to make. But I think we need to also sort of step back and ensure that we don't operate from a purely emotional point of view when we're weighing the pros and cons of strategic decisions that are important for a business. But I think it's a great time. It's an exciting time. There's so much that's changing. Online businesses are now are going digital and omni-channel and so on and so forth, and global. So I think it's an exciting time. But again, be mindful of who your customer is. Be mindful of the fact that cash at the end of the day counts, and be mindful of the fact that the customer is at the heart of the decisions that you make. And more importantly, something that we often tend to ignore or tend to overlook, and we're seeing a lot of that happen in the space today with consolidation, with a house of brand strategy being adopted by many, and companies, startup companies picking up other companies, etc. The pain of integration is a real pain, and so I think weigh that decision carefully. It's not it's easy to go out and pick somebody up and buy out a company, but it's hard to be able to integrate it. And the successful stories of integration are the ones that have been able to synergize at the back end. So whatever you need to fix in terms of efficiency, optimization, and so on and so forth, that happens in the kitchen. That's the back end. But at the front end, you're very, very sharp and focused in being able to create something that's very distinct as far as the consumer is concerned. So again, that is something that you need to be mindful of as we look at this house of brand strategy that seems to be one of the big things in the D2C space today. So those are some of the trends that I'm observing, and some of the lessons that I'm sharing that I've learned over the course of the years.
So now we all know why she's so good at what she does. I think she knows as much as all of us founders and what's happening. She knows everything from house of brand to what are the challenges. So I think you have like summarized everything you've been discussing in the community. But it's interesting you mentioned niches. Remember when we started the community, the first 10 people joined in, and the first message was, we are a group of innovators, and we want to come together, we are disruptors, we want to change status quo. And it's like I'm building a competitive jockey, somebody's building a competitive some other brand, and innovation is not happening in this space, and we are the new age entrepreneurs who want to change status quo. And I think we are very proud that we have, I think all of you, some of you have really achieved that, including me, honestly. And back then no one gave us a chance and said, hey, there's no way you can do this, right? And in 3, 4, 5 years we can see the impact, and I think Deep is like one example of that, like a category creator, right?
Absolutely.
So I think definitely, I think everyone in this room is actually pioneers, and that's the best thing about this community. Everyone is trying to help each other because they all know that they are disruptors, and they're not fighting each other, they are fighting
headroom for growth is significant. This is still a very small market that we're tapping into. I mean, I've been looking at numbers and they vary, but everyone's talking about the possibility of $100 billion by 2025 and so on and so forth. It's still a very small market, relatively small market for the size of population that we have. Within the Indian market, I mean, there's the metro opportunity, there's the tier 2, tier 3 opportunity. I mean, these are large spaces, these are country-level opportunities that we're talking about in terms of just pure numbers. I think we're really scratching the surface at this point in time. But it goes back to being able to identify a problem, being able to identify something that is a felt need for the consumer, or actually create a category. And I think what we're seeing today in the D2C space is that category creation. And the category creators are the ones who've gone on to create value and valuation. So I think that is going to be important as well as we look at the way forward.
No, absolutely. I think you also mentioned about acquisitions, and I think the space is fairly new. But I think this is one of the space which has had a lot of, like India has not seen a lot of acquisitions, but a lot of people say, yeah, D2C is scalable and all of that, but we have people sitting here. We have in fact a panel now which talks about acquisition, and we have 5 female founders who have built and sold their brands. So I think that is not something you will see, I'm sure, in a lot of other spaces. And in fact, that also indicates to repeat founders coming back, because a lot of these people will build back businesses. And for example, you have Radhika sitting here, she has like built shop clues and now she's building other B2C business.
This row is all the young turns. So.
Yeah, except me. But where I was coming to you is because you've seen that whole revolution, right? Where do you see the ecosystem maturity from a D2C point of view, from a founder point of view? Obviously, we have minted founders who are going better in the game, but majorly this is a new age economy, it's a new set of founders. So have you seen that cycle happening in other sectors, how founders have matured and how second, third time founders are coming in, and what do you see here in the D2C?
So I think as I pointed out that, and I'll give you the example of Mukesh Bansal, for instance, or Vinny and Sachin at Flipkart. I mean, when they started off and they created Myntra or they created Flipkart, there wasn't, you didn't have Aadhaar, you didn't have, KYC or eKYC or any of that. I mean, these were essentially brick and mortar operations trying to retrofit in a tech, in a tech sort of world where the tech was still building itself out. So, you've seen the kinds of businesses that were built where the environment was not particularly conducive. And today it's a lot easier, as I pointed out, because as far as the technology is concerned, whether you have internet penetration or smartphone access, etc., I mean that's a world of a difference. So it's a lot easier today for the founders who are starting up. But at the same time, when I spoke about the majority, what you saw during that cycle was, okay, what's working in the West, can we sort of give it an India spin and set up a business in India? I have a problem with people who say we want to be India's Twitter or we want to be India's TikTok. I mean, there is already a TikTok, there is already Twitter, there is already Facebook. These are global companies, these are global brands. You and me access them sitting in India. That's the beauty of technology. It doesn't create borders in that sense. So I think this aspiration of wanting to create an India version of a global brand or a global company, I think that has its limitations, and I think we need to be careful of that. So you're starting to see that majority. I mean, I'm particularly excited. It may not necessarily fall into the D2C space as we popularly sort of have come to know the D2C space, but the stuff that's happening in agriculture, the stuff that's happening, in science and technology, on the drone side, these are new spaces. Nobody was talking about any of this. The stuff that's happening on the logistics side, for instance, I mean, with delivery and all of these companies, I mean, it's given founders the opportunity to create businesses because now you have that, that back end that helps you deliver to customers and so on and so forth. So I think these are all new nascent spaces. So you are seeing a maturity of the ecosystem and much more relevant businesses that are relevant for the Indian consumer to the Indian market at scale. I think that's been one of the biggest positive changes that I've noticed.
Great. So I think overall net positive for D2C. I think the last question I would like to ask you before we open it up to the audience for Q&A is, like, personally your journey over the last 23 years and building and staying good for 23 years, that's a very long period. And obviously you've done very well. But how has been your journey, and what do you think has been like the top 3 things you've got it right, or what do you think has worked for you, and what people can take away from your journey?
Well, I feel old to start with, but it's been a fabulous 23 years. I never thought that as a literally I got into this business right after my masters, and I was 22 and
With the same organization.
With the same organization, yes. And I think there's value to that. I mean, I think that for me, I mean, even though this was not a company that I founded, but it was I joined the company on the day that it turned one. So I joined CNBC literally the day that it turned one. And there is I think for each one of us, and you would identify with this. There has to be a sense of ownership. There has to be a deep commitment to wanting to build something out. Whether you're an employee or you're a founder, I think if you create an organization where employees have a founder's mindset, you will actually be able to deliver much more. And so I've been very fortunate. And my mother jokes about this, saying that your erstwhile promoters have also moved on, but you're still there. But that's the truth. I still love large parts of what I do. I love this brand. I think we've created a brand that has stood the test of time. I think it's a brand that continues to be relevant, and that really is what brand building is about. You're not just selling a product or a service. You're selling a story. You're creating a story, and I think that is what we've attempted to do. And I firmly believe that the power of storytelling lies in creating communities around content, and that's what we've tried to do with CNBC. So it's been a fabulous learning for me personally of doing this. It's a great opportunity because in 24 hours I can go from having a startup conversation to having a conversation on the telecom sector to having a conversation on the pharma sector to talking about the GST woes that SMEs are dealing with. So in many ways it gives you a completely sort of different world view because it's hard as well because you've got to sort of compartmentalize. My mind is like a filing cabinet. But it also gives you the opportunity to learn so much more, and that's one of the other things that I will share with you is that create organizations and teams that are learning organizations and learning teams, and as leaders and as founders, we create an environment which is a listening environment, and I hope to do both, and I think that that's been the balance as well. So creating a learning as well as a listening organization has been something that I've sort of been passionate about, and I hope that we've been able to do that. And things that I've learned from people that I have interacted with. I remember that might be something of use and value to the women here in this room. Something that Mr. Murthy at Infosys always said. And he said, remember that let the bad news take the elevator, let the good news take the stairs. We always have the tendency to not talk about the bad stuff. We always have the tendency to sort of brush the bad stuff or whatever hasn't worked out under the carpet and only talk about the good stuff or only showcase and highlight the good stuff. I think it is important because it's also a learning experience for each one of us to acknowledge the mistakes, to acknowledge our vulnerabilities, to acknowledge our weaknesses, and I think that's very critical as well because that helps you be better. And the road to excellence is built on daily improvements. I have absolutely no doubt about that. You have to do something incrementally every day that makes the experience better, that makes the product better, that makes the service better. Something has to be better every single day, and that, to my mind, is really the road to excellence. And again, at the end of the day, I think a large reason why I have stayed with the organization the last 23 years is because you have to enjoy what you do with the people that you do. And I think that makes a big difference. And I think to have a sense of collaboration, to have a sense of partnership, to have a sense of co-ownership, I think that is critical. I don't believe in hierarchies. I believe in a open, accessible workplace. I'm on call 24/7. I'm accessible 24/7, and I think that. But that doesn't mean that I don't delegate or I don't empower. You also have to empower people to make their decisions. You have to empower people to go out there and take a call on things. And you also have to, as leaders, stand by that decision. You have to stand by your people, good or bad. If a decision doesn't work out, you can't throw somebody under the bus and say, I told you so. You have to stand by people. So create empowered teams that believe in the magic of collaboration and partnership. And I think that you will be able to create something of value, of consequence, significance, and be happy while you're doing it as well. And that at the end of the day, we all need to go to bed, feeling satisfied and happy with less regrets of the day that's gone by. And I think that really has to be what we focus on.
Wow, that's amazing, and thanks a lot, Shreen, again, for sharing all your nuggets. I would like to open this up to the audience now, and we can maybe have a few questions. If anyone has anything you want to ask, please.
ये वाला वहाँ पे जाएगा।
We have